Hi gang, Rob here. It is the afternoon of 25 January 2020, coming to you today with a knife review of this knife in front of the camera. Yeah, this one generously loaned to me for purposes of review from my customer Ben. This is the Chris Reeve Knives Impinda, a relatively new offering from Chris Reeve, designed in conjunction with renowned knife designer William Harsey. The Impinda, something a little bit different, because I see no lock, because there is no lock. Yeah, the Impinda, I think probably released in late 2018, and it trickled into retailers in very small numbers for a while, and just over the last few months, full-scale production has started to happen, and it's made its way into the hands of knife lovers, Chris Reeve fans, and social media enthusiasts. So the niche for the Impinda is a niche, as we usually say, that I've been interested in for some time. I call it the fusion knife. What's a fusion knife? Well, a fusion knife takes everything about this knife. This is my GEC Acorn 440C number 74 Mustang. Takes everything that's cool about this knife and everything that's cool about this knife, my left-handed large Semenza 21 PJ, and makes something in between and wonderful. There's only one problem with this line of thinking. Up till now, the fusion knives have been several. The wonderful has been few and far between. So before we talk about this, let's talk about some others. First of all, there's the Benchmade Proper. Not the first to the party, but an absolute abortion of a knife with horrendous action. I mean horrendous action. If I bought a $3 Chinese slip joint, I would send it back if it felt like a Benchmade Proper. Let's see, there's the Hinderer. The official name of the Hinderer is the XM18 slip joint. It is widely listed and referred to as the Hinderer Slippy. And for those of you who watch this channel, and more importantly, for those of you who have ever talked to Bill Howard, owner of GEC, Great Eastern Cutlery, the word slippy is abhorrent and offensive to traditional pocket knife people. In the words of Bill, how'd you like somebody to come up to you and say, "Hey buddy, you want a slippy?" But anyway, that's what the Hinderer is called. Then you have, I think, maybe what's the best of the bunch in this fusion knife niche. This is the Roundhead Barlow, commissioned by Mike Latham from Lion Steel. Mike Latham from Collector Knives by Lion Steel. So this is the knife with its titanium bolsters and liners, but modern non-hafted construction, M390 blade. This is the knife that I think really emulates a traditional pocket knife in the way it acts better than the rest. The walk and talk is superb. It's a half-stop knife. The talk at closing is a little different because it does use an internal stop pin. But when you compare this to this, that's pretty good, right? It's pretty doggone good. Great effort for $120-ish. Okay, so So Chris Reeve kind of late to the party with this offering, and kind of late with numbers after after its initial release. So what do we got? Is it any good? Well, let's take a peek. You have a handle length of about 4 1/16 inches. Got a drop point blade, 3 1/8 inches in length. Very harsy, right? Handle very harsy. S35 VN, as Chris Reeve is wont to use, with a hollow grind. Feels like old Sebenza radius hollow, not the large hollow of the Inkosi. But pretty nice looking blade, nice subtle swedge. Plunge grind and shoil executed pretty well. It's a little tight. I think you can see the way the light reflects off the plunge. It's just about at the end of the edge, so it's going to be a little tight getting that one sharpened correctly. Not quite as good as most Sebenzas, I would say. 6AL4V titanium, well chamfered and machined. Normal Chris Reeve sandblast. Chris Reeve fasteners for the back end of the knife. Or the 5/64 Allens with the pivot barrels for maintaining location, which is very important in this knife because we'll take a peek inside it and see how it kind of goes together. Location is everything on this design. Noticing anything different about that clip? We have a fully milled titanium pocket clip. I know lots of you will love that. As a Chris Reeve fan, I'm not a fan of the clip for two reasons. I don't love titanium pocket clips that are milled because generally they're not springy enough. That's pretty good, actually. I think that is perhaps the finest pocket clip ever put on a knife. Anytime we go away from that, I'm not necessarily a fan, but that's just me, the old geezer. But the main reason I don't like this clip is because there's nothing about this knife other than the clip that would keep it from being ambidextrous, except the clip, okay? I'm not sure how you guys feel about this who have had it in hand a lot, but it's awfully close to the edge of the frame, a characteristic that got him in trouble on the Sebenza 25, and I'm not sure if I like that. I don't know. It doesn't seem to have that digging into the hand quality that the clip did on the 25, but at any rate, I would have preferred a straight clip, whether it's milled or the standard Chris Reeve clip, that could have been swappable with fill tabs. And I believe these knives do ship with a fill tab for the milled pocket that orients the clip in case you want to carry this traditional style. So let's take a look at the ergos. Not bad in hand, and when I first picked this knife up, I thought, man, that finger groove is back quite a ways. You almost run out of real estate, but not quite. I wear a large glove, but barely, so sort of a medium-large hand, and I'm a little cramped to get my pinky inside the horn of the butt of that knife. It kind of begs you to come forward a little, but I felt that was a little unsettling because any thumb pressure on the spine, like you would use in a saber grip of a locking modern folder, any pressure on the spine of the Impinda, the blade moves. It's like it ran out of spring at the very top as it comes to full open. So it's a little unsettling to see and feel that. So you're probably better off to stay back if you're in a saber grip. Other grips, and I am feeling that clip. The overhand pinch grip, I don't know, I've had better. Let's see. Not sure what it is. It just doesn't quite hit me right. Draw cut grip, not bad, but I am definitely noticing the clip. Hammer grip, pretty good there. Not that you'd ever employ this grip on this knife, but if you did, it would be pretty good. So ergos, okay. They'd be better if the handle was longer. You know, if this was the small and there were a larger version, the large would be better. Just saying. Thickness behind the edge seems pretty thin. Yeah, certainly thinner than a large Sebenza clip point. Let's see. Versus a small Sebenza. Maybe even a little thinner than that. There's a good size comparison for you. Squarely in between the large and small Sebenza for size. So a really nicely fashioned blade. Nice thin tip. By the way, blade stock, 130 thousandths for blade and both handle slabs. Pretty normal Chris Reeve stuff there. So, how well did they execute the slip joint? Because in their marketing literature, both on the Chris Reeve website and the retailer websites, they really hype the Harsey spring and the profile of the tang of the knife, the cam action of the tang, and the internal stop pin. Frankly, all that stuff, the Harsey spring, it's a back spring that's fastened by two fasteners and puts spring tension on the blade tang. There's nothing new to see here. Pivot's kind of interesting. We'll take a little look inside the knife. You have the male side of the pivot is here with the driver pocket, and then the plain side of the pivot is the female side. And the way that you get this apart is you loosen with your Allen wrench the female side, spinning the barrel in the hole until you get enough disengagement that you can push it through, because there's actually there's a shelf on this side of the pivot that goes across right here that must be properly aligned for this to stay put in a fixed position. So you unscrew this a little bit, you push it so this is exposed, then you can spin this out by hand. You don't want to take this side out because that's your locating barrel for the blade. Then these two screws come out. Then your three barrels hold everything in place. So this scale can come off with everything still put together. So you don't have to be super intimidated when you take this thing apart. And here's your inside look. So you can see the shape of the back spring. You can see the internal stop pin. You can see your perforated Chris Reeve washer. You can see even some remnants of Chris Reeve fluorinated grease. See how nicely everything fits together. Notice on one side you're going to have the Idaho Made logo in the neighborhood of the pivot, and then you go to the other scale and the William Harsey signature is there. It's neat how they left the knife totally sterile on the outside. Totally sterile on the outside, and then the appropriate maker's marks are inside the knife, which is an area that you're actually going to see because it's a knife that's designed to be disassembled and serviced, as with all Chris Reeve knives, which is very cool. So let's see, the elephant in the room is the difference in perception from a guy who gets this knife in hand, who's read all the stuff that Chris Reeve says about itself in this knife. You know, the high level of engineering in a slip joint mechanism, the spring, the pivot, the stop pin. Then the experience of actually getting the knife in hand. And frankly, it's not smooth. And I think you can even see how not smooth it is. It's very notchy. It's not great. Blade centering and the way that everything goes together is just fine. You do have to play with the blade centering when you reassemble, though. I did notice that, because things are under so much tension. You just kind of have to be sure that your scales are aligned properly in this orientation, which affects the centering of the blade. Most of you guys know that. So construction, machining, fit and finish, all totally Chris Reeve. The user experience, though, as a slip joint fusion knife, just not that great. Frankly, not as good as a $120 lion steel. If I were buying a custom slip joint knife that cost as much as this knife does, which is the same as a Sebenza, $450, I would expect vastly superior walk and talk to what we get with the Impinda. I just would. Is it as bad as a Benchmade proper? No. Is it as good as a Lion Steel Roundhead? No. Is it as good as a GC half-stop knife that's done right? Absolutely not. So, same money as a Sebenza, a large Sebenza. No lock. Slightly overhyped, not particularly luxurious pivot mechanism. There are things that you do get with the Chris Reeve product, those intangibles that add value to the knife, and by that I'm talking about rock solid warranty, lifetime serviceability. One thing about Chris Reeve knives, 30-plus-year-old company. I don't care how old your Sebenza is or how beat up it is. You can send it back to Chris Reeve, and for very little money, it can come back to you looking like a brand new one. Can you say that 20 years from now about Rayot or we? You can't even say that about them now. So long-term ownership experience on Chris Reeve products makes them worth more money than most other knives. But even compared to other products in the Chris Reeve line, I just don't see it here. If you're a slip joint pocket knife and you want to buy a modern knife, is this what you should buy? No, you should buy a modern knife. If you are a modern folder guy and you are intrigued by the concept that you can actually have a folding knife without a lock and use it, should you buy one of these? Maybe. But buy one of these first, or one of these, for a lot less money to see if you really like it. It's not the goofiest, worst of these knives out there. The Hinder Slippy, to me, is way more ridiculous with its strange-looking fuller, which is a track for a movable thumb disc. I never did get that. Or the Benchmade proper. But is this a $450 fusion slip joint knife, even though it does say CR right here? I think not. I was talking with one of my buddies today who is a retailer. We both sort of agreed this knife would have done well in the market at $299. Very close to the price of the Hinder XM18 slip joint. For $450, and by the way, non-hafted construction, meaning the finished surfaces of the scales and the back spring are complete before the knife is assembled. And if you sort of turn that so that you can see how those meet, it's not completely consistent front to back. There's a little high spot in the spring right through here. Don't know if the camera's going to pick that up too well, but similar to the non-hafted construction of the $120 Lion Steel. So did I want to love this knife When Ben sent it to me, yes. Do I love Chris Reeve knives? Yes. Do I normally happily pay more for a Chris Reeve knife than I would for other brands of knives with similar materials and construction? Yes, I do. For that long-term ownership experience I was talking about. Am I going to run out and buy an Impinda? Even if I were right-handed? No. Thank you to Ben for sending me the knife for review, and I'm terribly sorry, Ben, if I've kind of killed your buzz on this one. Don't mean to do that. There's nothing wrong with the quality and the build of the knife. It just doesn't appeal to me on a couple emotional levels that it would need to for me in order for me to justify paying the money it would cost to buy one. That's about it for that, I think. So if you would classify this a negative review, it's the first one I've ever given a Chris Reeve knife. Kind of too bad too, because it's a handsome devil. Handle's beautiful. Blade's beautiful, functional. It just left me wanting more. Especially for $450. So we'll set them down on the background in good company. As I say to you guys on a snowy Saturday afternoon, grace to you and peace, my friends, from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. Remember, the word is sharp. Have a great weekend.